establishing a site here to put on a kind of a demonstration of the process of lighting a fire in the northern forests. I have a bundle of kindling to get the fire started. We will build a fire without digging back the snow. We will place the logs, so when you're going to light a fire, the biggest, heaviest logs you plan to use, you usually lay down first, space them a bit, and then build your fire on top, and those logs will catch on fire better and easier than if you tried to put them on top of a bunch of finer fuel and so on. We're going to let the fire melt back the snow to demonstrate the working part of the fire. That is, when the fire is hot enough to drive you at least a step away or so, it'll melt the snow around it, and you must live between the fire and where the snow stops melting for you to derive the greatest benefit from that fire. So we are going to not shovel back any snow, let the fire melt it off. We will situate our fire somewhere here so that you can see very clearly in the picturing of how the snow melts back and how the microenvironment that's created by the utilization of the radiance of a fire is demonstrated. Now here we have laid down the 3 bigger logs that we're using in this particular fire. The fire that's in the open is moderated by the size of the fuel you use. So you want a long-lasting fire that doesn't require much stoking, then you've got to use logs that may be ideally hug size. There's a hug size log that's as tall as you are and that big. You can still maneuver it and put it around. We have finer kindling here. We got fine kindling, very fine kindling in the form of birch bark, and we have coarser kindling in the form of twigs. We will light the kindling where it's easy to light, and then this business of using the bundles, you can then invert the bundle and proceed to light the fire. Where a lot of people lay everything, then they got to get under there and they've got to work in an awkward situation. There the bark is burning. The flames are not doing their work until you rotate the pile. And the pile is now, without jarring it or putting the fire out, now the flames are going into the twigs. Things range to match thick. Then on top of that, you put finger thick sticks. And the more you put on, the bigger the blaze and the quicker you establish a warming fire. Like so. And you learn by experience not to squash your fire out. And the flames are going through the branches. And everything is parallel, usually parallel to the wind. None of this teepee stuff that I keep seeing. Still illustrated. You should think by this day and age, people who write books on survival should know that a teepee fire is not a survival fire. Now we can let the fire establish itself for a short while, because sometimes if the fire isn't, maybe these sticks would be damp. Then you start putting the next biggest logs, or maybe you have the biggest logs on top, you build on top of them. Then you start by using not so large logs that are going to, are going to catch on fire very readily. But everything is parallel, so that as the fire burns, gravity readjusts the material over the fire. The parallel log fire is self-adjusting, usually. The spacing, ideal spacing, is a finger. Finger to 4 fingers. But basically ideal is 1 finger. Beyond 4 fingers, the fire doesn't want to work as well. We will periodically come back to see how the heat of the fire is going to melt an oval around it. And once that is established, that's a self-training ploy for you to develop a concept of knowing what the fire will do for you, because you can't argue against the point that where the snow stops melting, that's where the influence of the fire stops. And you've got to live somewhere in there to get the greatest benefit. Now here, this log is kind of heavy, and if I put it on gently, it'd be better, but I'll put it on. And in an hour or so, all these bigger logs will be blazing away. If we threw everything in the snow, the heat will have melted the snow away, and eventually the fire will end up being on the forest floor, and the snow will be gone. Now what you're looking at here is a fire that probably needs another few more logs in about 3 hours. This is the warming fire for survival. There's no circle of stones around it. There's no teepee action in here. The logs are about as long as you're tall. The logs are parallel to the wind. The shelter that could benefit from this fire is got its ridgepole parallel to the wind, and I have to move because the fire is so intensely hot it's going to melt my nylon clothing here. You have a third log?
Nope.
Nope. Fine. There might be a third log around somewhere.
Yeah, over there is.
Yeah, space finger, 4 fingers, a little wider apart.
A little wider?
Yeah, 4 fingers for that layer of logs.
This is a course for you alone, Dragon.
Huh?
This is a course for you alone.
I left those nubs on because I thought that was...
Isn't there more than
I think there's right there, Kelly, standing.
Hiding.
Oh, there's another log. That'll be
You want that one in there right here?
Yeah, that one there is another one there. Just bring it in.
It's going to be in that.
You want it down there? Where's...
You're saying right parallel. Yeah, just like that. That's good.
I got a little shovel we can...
Hide the tracks.
So
No,
this is
that'll
okay,
do
Iran?
it.
No, that's all right, yeah.
So now we're back at ready to film it.